And so I was out on the golf course, and we were playing golf out on the tee box. It was hole 5, I think. And so the course, or the hole, is shaped, it's a dog leg right, and I'm left-handed. So we see a cart drive forward and go behind some trees. And I've played this course many times, so I know I can't hit it that far. So I line my drive up, I hit the drive, and it's hooking toward the right, but I knew that it was too short to hit them. But what I didn't know is that all I see after I hit the ball is a cart come flying back through the middle of the fairway, and the ball goes straight through the cart with the man driving on it. And so we get down there, and I had some cool reflective shades on. And this guy, he's like a fiery hot ginger. And fiery hot as in fuming. You could see like smoke coming out of his ears and nose. And he just comes up to me and says, "Don't you effing do that again. Otherwise we will have a mother effing problem." And I told him, 1, I won't do it again. 2, I would not like any problems with your mother or the F word. And I had reflective shade, so he couldn't see my eyes. All he could see was himself yelling at me. And I was 14 at this time. He's probably 25. So he enacted his dominance over me, but I didn't let that stop me from caring for him as a human. But that was just a little insight to some of my experiences that have formed me. But how has your week been, sir? It's been 7 days now?
It's been 7 days, and it was a good week. We got Monday off, which is always great to have a 4-day week. Really makes the week fly by. But this week, I finished season 1 of Mad Men, which has John Hamm. It's set in the 1960s, and it's basically they're at this advertising agency, and obviously all sorts of mischief and tomfoolery ensues. So it's not a particularly suspenseful show, and there's no violence, or I don't really know how to describe it. You just kind of get a look into the 60s. That's probably why I like it, is because it's what I would think the 60s are like. Everyone's just smoking and drinking, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and everyone's
It's your perfect day.
It's my perfect day. Oh, but it's a good show, and you just really don't want to stop watching it. And I couldn't convey to you what is so good about it, but after each episode, I'm like, man, I want to see more. So yeah, it's been really enjoyable. If you haven't watched it, I would encourage you to do that. It's got a little bit of language here and there, so probably not one to watch with the kiddos, but overall, it's a good show for adults, Other than that, I've actually had this twice now, I'll say. I had it last week and I had it this week. Totally forgot about it last week. I had the new pimento cheese sandwich at Chick-fil-A. And it's got pimento cheese, it's got hot honey, and jalapenos. And you can get it on a grilled filet, their normal fried filet, or you can get it on a spicy filet. And this was a Friday afternoon, so I'm saying to myself, let's go crazy. Let's get spicy filet.
Oh.
So I got the spicy filet, and I'll be honest with you, the honey really tones down all the heat, the rest of the heat in the sandwich, and balances it out very, very well. But overall, it's a kind of a creamy sandwich. That's the best way I could describe it. It's an odd way to describe a sandwich, but
that's how I love all my sandwiches.
But it's just so good. You get that crisp, fresh, spicy, like a little bite of the jalapeno in there every once in a while. It was a really, really delicious sandwich. And I'll say this as well. I got the caramel crumble milkshake as well, which they released at the same time as the pimento sandwich. And it was really good. I'm a big caramel fan. And it wasn't like a creamy caramel. It was like little chunks of almost like a hard candy. Like a Werther's Original. That's not caramel, I don't think. That's more of a butterscotch, but I'm a big hard candy guy. So whenever I turn whatever old age you have to be to carry around hard candies in your pocket.
I believe the senior adults these days are 50 and up.
Okay.
So I think my parents are senior adults.
Does your dad does he carry around Werther's Originals in his pocket?
Werther's Originals and cough drops. And he has a foldable cane that he holds in his back pocket.
The hurricane.
Yes, the hurricane.
Oh, but yes, it was an excellent shake, and like I said before, I think I'm gonna be a caramel kind of guy. My pawpaw, he carries those big peppermints, but not the skinny ones, but the kind of puffed up peppermints that dissolve really easily. I'm probably gonna have to do a rotation of the peppermints and the caramels whenever I'm at that age. Currently, it would be inexcusable for me to carry around hard candies, unless it was like a throat lozenge, like you had mentioned before. So
I can just picture you're going to be an incredible grandpa, and you're going to have little children running up to you. Grandpa, may I have some candies? And you're going to tell them, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Go give Grandpa a hug.
And I've got 40 caramels in each pocket.
Some of them are melted together. Oh, it's your lucky day. You get 4. These have been in Grandpa's pocket since 2023. This is from the original caramel milkshake from Chick-fil-A.
There's a couple warm July days in there that made these caramels fuse together. You're a lucky boy.
Oh, man. That's hilarious.
Oh, but yeah, I would say that's probably the two most exciting things going on in my life. So, similar to Mad Men, I would encourage you to go out there, get that new Chick-fil-A sandwich. We're recording this on a Sunday, so unfortunately that's not an option for me today, but there's 6 other days in the week, people. And you really got to go out there and get it.
Yeah, and when you do get that sandwich, just be sure to tell them that the Quite Frankly podcast with Brett Walters and Bo Martin sent you. And maybe even write it down on a piece of paper, and maybe even write the link to the show on a piece of paper as well. Mm-hmm. But they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
and I don't know if I'm allowed to say this or not, but we get some kickbacks from Chick-fil-A.
You're allowed to say it now.
Okay, thank goodness, because we just promoted them on the podcast. So me and Truett are pretty close. And so, yeah, they're one of the sponsors. Let them know that you heard about the new sandwich via the Quite Frankly podcast, and they'll show you some love, I'm sure.
But it'll be generous love. Generous and deep.
That's the only way.
Yes.
Well, Bo, how was your week?
My week's been pretty excellent, pretty fast-paced, pretty exciting. Lots of stuff going on. We had our 3rd cabinet meeting for the Unity Party of the United States of America, and quite frankly, I'm just pleased with the direction that this cabinet is moving toward, and that direction is forward. And so we got a lot of cool things on the docket, but we can't release that information to the public quite yet because it's still internal. We did have to let 2 people go. We had to terminate them from their positions, so those positions are now open. So if you're interested in serving, feel free to join after you apply and go through the process. So that was good. I didn't tell you this, but we did have a young lady from another country reach out and ask if she could do some SEO research and SEO performance enhancing on our podcast about Jimmy Buffett. But she was going to charge money, and quite frankly, we don't do that. Because here's the thing that I thought is, she reached out to us about a podcast that she does not subscribe to, that showed up on her feed, and she told us that our SEO ranks were terrible. Now, there's 2 problems with this. Is one, obviously our SEO ranks aren't terrible because you found our podcast without searching for it. What do you search to find a terrible SEO ranked podcast? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you drive down, so it started at $100 per episode. Then she made it all the way down to $5. So to me, it sounded like a scam. If you're watching this and you're a real person, I'm so sorry. This is why I haven't given out your name yet. But anyway, the business plan there was, oh, I found your podcast through SEO, but now I'm going to tell you that your SEO is bad, and so you need to employ me. It's just not going to work out for you, at least with our podcast. Quite frankly, Brett is a SEO engineer and a keyword optimizer. So
that's correct.
How do you think you found it in the first place? You know. Anyway, that's the update of the week. NFL football launched on Thursday. Some fantasy football teams are playing, and quite frankly, my teams are terrible. But I'm not in it for the points. I'm in it for the love with the people. And so that's cool. Speaking of Labor Day, we had that day off. I played some tennis with my friend Kevin. That was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. We were the only 2 tennis players there. There's pickleball on all the other tennis courts, but we had reserved the tennis courts so no pickleball could come on. See, we think ahead. So that's it. And speaking of tennis, the U.S. Open started up. Been watching that. A lot of exciting things.
Well, that's awesome. Did y'all, did you feel like you had some sort of high ground morally on the people playing pickleball? Since you were the only tennis players, you're like, hey, just so you guys know, we're the only real ones here.
Moral high ground, no. But physical high ground, yes. Kind of like we could beat you at anything. You know, any ball sport, we got you. Not really. Physically, actually, the tennis courts are on a slight slope. So, it's very minimal, very minimal. You can't see it by the eye. But if you were to put a level down there, it starts just ever so slightly downward. So we were on the highest point of that court. So physically, we were on high ground.
Very good. That's incredible. Well, speaking of the U.S. Open, I don't know how much you watched of it, but a fellow by the name of Ben Shelton made it all the way to the semifinals. And he went to the University of Florida. I believe he went to Buchholz High School as well. So it's a small world. We got Gators going to the U.S. Open. Unfortunately, yesterday he did lose to the Joker, Mr. Djokovic. But then again, he is heavily in the conversation for the greatest of all time right now. So I don't really blame him for that. But it was funny. I was watching some of the highlights after their match, and Ben Shelton's got this kind of celebration whenever he wins a match or a set or something like that. He'll put his hand up to his ear like he's making a phone call. I don't really know what that celebration implies. Maybe he's got like a really good service carrier or something and wants to brag about it. But after Djokovic beat him, he does the phone to the ear and then does a little action like he's hanging up the phone. And I thought that was, I mean, look, I was cheering for Ben Shelton, but I thought that was stone cold of a celebration right there.
That's classic Joker. I mean, the guy, I think he's a mastermind, because obviously the United States, playing in the United States, they're going to be pulling for Ben, the U.S. men. And he turned that crowd and just did not let them get into it. And it was quite fascinating. So he's mentally tough, I'll say that much. And excellent on the court.
Oh, no doubt about that. But I think it's just incredible that we've got just some local guys, local for you at least, that are making it to the biggest stage. I mean, University of Florida puts out a lot of great football players, baseball players, track stars. But in the tennis arena, I think Ben is going to end up to be probably one of the bigger names that has come out of there.
Yeah. I have some of my basketball friends who are on the track team are good friends with Ben. And I always look at their time together and I think, now that looks like a good time. But they're all talented. They're all, I would say, extremely world-class athletes. And so it's cool to spend time with some of them because the training that goes into it is just, I would say, probably 75% mental toughness, and it's fascinating. Because you can have the 25% physical, but if you can't hang mentally,
right,
that'll preach beyond athletics too.
It is incredible from a physical side. Walking around on campus, you see some of those, offensive tackles, and you're like, dude, you're 7 foot tall, 380 pounds. How are you 19 years old? I was a senior walking around at, 22 years old? And this guy, they could eat me.
They could. And that would be half of their daily calorie count.
Yes. It's true.
Speaking of offensive in Florida, well, I think this guy's defense. Did you see anything about Javon Dexter?
I saw some blip came up on my ESPN app, but I haven't looked into it a ton.
Do you know what the NIL is?
I'm aware of NIL, yeah.
The name, what is it? Name, image, and likeness. That's NIL. Yep. You get paid for your name, image, and likeness. And this is a big buzzword in the college world. But I'm just going to read the headline here because it's quite fascinating. Chicago Bears second-round pick Javon Dexter has filed a lawsuit against Big League Advance. Dexter accepted $436,485 in NIL money while at the University of Florida in exchange for 15% of his pre-tax NFL earnings for 25 years. His attorney now says the deal violates NIL, NCAA, and Florida laws. But can you imagine owing someone 15% of your pre-tax income for 25 years in exchange for $500,000?
Oh my goodness. I mean, legalities aside, I'm no lawyer. I know some folks who have gone through law school or currently in law school at Florida. But strictly from a mathematical standpoint, I feel like even if you're a sixth rounder, you do that 15%. I mean, nobody's going to be in the NFL for 25 years. So they're essentially saying your entire career in the NFL, you owe us 15%. And I don't know if that extends, if he gets out of the NFL and starts selling car insurance. I don't know if that extends to that or not either. But I mean, for $500,000, I think that's a great example of our culture being instant gratification. And you see the dollar signs right up close, but you're not thinking a couple years down the road, because I don't know what his salary currently is, but I mean, if he does have to pay this 15%, I would think it's going to be in the millions of what he owes these people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he excels in the NFL, the University of Florida is going to have a ton of money. Well, big league advance, because at that time, I don't think it was actually the University of Florida. I think it was the collectives.
Yeah.
But it's a great example of reading the terms and conditions as well. But you brought up instant gratification. I'm interested to see and know what kinds of things you instantly gratify yourself with.
Me personally?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to close your eyes and picture this.
Eyes are closed.
Okay.
I'm picturing.
I can see that. It's Friday afternoon. I get off work at 4:30. I got a 30-minute drive to the house. Okay? I text my wife, hey, I'm headed home. Hop in the silver F-150, driving down the road. And off in the distance, I see that red sign by the road that has a little chicken on it. And I say, daggum, how about a caramel milkshake and some pimento cheese on my spicy sandwich? And I close my eyes and the Lord directs my hands and the wheel to turn into the Chick-fil-A drive-thru. And I think that is probably the most accurate picture of instant gratification in my life. So you may open your eyes, and I hope you enjoyed that trip.
Wow. Did I just wake up from a dream? I might have the gift of prophecy. I'm willing. I see you going on Friday to Chick-fil-A and grabbing a pimento cheese and caramel. And specifically, you're going to take the caramel off of the milkshake and store them in your pockets for the next 40 years.
Look, that's not prophecy. I'm telling you, that's going to happen.
That makes sense, man. It's hard. You fall into temptations. Yeah. I was going to say some temptations are good, but temptations has a negative connotation. So
right.
We're going to go with no temptations are good, but you will be tempted.
Yeah. And
so maybe,
go ahead.
Are temptations good? They certainly build you once you refuse them. But are they in themselves good? No. I'm just spitballing because temptations come from who?
Lucifer.
The Lord allows Lucifer to tempt us.
Correct. The Lord will never tempt you.
Correct. The Lord gives you the strength to resist the temptation. So I'm going to say no temptations are good because of the bearer of the temptation. And even more so, falling into temptation is never good. But relying on the strength that the Lord gives you to face the temptation is good. Wow.
And it builds character.
It builds character. That's a verse in Romans. Scripturally confirmed.
Backed by science and scripture.
Are they the same?
1,000%.
We just solved whether temptation is good or bad. And we're landing on temptation is bad because of the tempter.
There you have it, folks. I think in the case of Trevon Dexter, I think it's a little sad because there's a lot of people in in college athletics that grew up not having much, and that's putting it nicely. So I think whenever you flash 500 G's in front of them and say, no matter what happens in the NFL, here's this money now, which I'm sure there were other conditions in the contract, but seems a little predatory. And I know that Florida had, at that point, lots of different collectives, but they've since then dissolved a bunch of them, and they're all working under Florida Victorious now, which I think is probably the best way to do it, because there were some bad apples that were giving the university a bad rap there for a while, and it seems like this is another case of that.
Absolutely, and it's important. I think to move it toward a one fund kind of thing, like everything's in one fund. I think that's probably for the best. But it also, I would say, maybe they have them on the football team and athletics department, but get some financial advisors up in there and teach the kids, college students, how to handle money. Because at the end of the day, this guy is 21. You see $500,000, it's hard. It's hard to resist.
Yeah.
I would say that's hard for me to resist. But maybe if I saw that I would owe 15% for the rest of my life, I might not sign it.
You got a lucrative NFL career ahead of you. So
Yes.
Well, speaking of money and paying the bills, a word from our sponsor is up next. So this episode, quite frankly, is brought to you by surströmming. Surströmming is lightly salted, fermented Baltic sea herring traditional to Swedish cuisine since at least the 16th century, maybe even earlier. So it's high in protein and low in calories. The original Swedish fish will light your senses and limit brain fog. Every morning, my wife and I take our daily doses of surströmming, and all of our friends love us afterwards. Instant love from our friends. Do you want a clear brain? Surströmming is for you. Apply for your first shipment at flobo.com. And I will say,
I've never heard of this.
I hadn't either, but I started taking them last week, and like it says here in the advertisement, all of our friends loved us afterward. They didn't want to stand close to us because our breath reeked of Baltic sea herring. Herring? Yes, the fish. However, you get all of those, I think, fish oils and omega-3s, all that good stuff, and it really opens up your senses, every single one of them. It's a whole new world. It's almost, I would say, slightly psychedelic to some point. But it's a great product. I get so much work done the past week. Obviously, it was a 4-day work week. I feel like it was 4 weeks worth of work that I got done. So you'll have to go to flobo.com, get some of that fermented Baltic sea herring, and who knows, pick up a Quite Frankly sweatshirt while you're over there.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about your brain fog journey? I know that's been a real struggle.
Well, brain fog, when it hits you, you know it. So I know that me personally, sometimes I just wake up, and especially after the baby was born, I'll give a little anecdote here. Stetson was up crying, and Molly was shaking me awake, and I was so tired. She was shaking me. She's like, "Hey, it's your turn to change his diaper." And I wake up, I sit up in bed, and I say, "What number is it?" And I'm totally out of my mind. I have no clue what's going on. I'm pretty sure I'm still asleep. And I say, "What number is it?" She's like, "What are you talking about? You're in bed. You're sitting up in bed." And I'm like, "I think it's 28. I think it's number 28. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Just go change his diaper." And so thankfully, since then, I haven't had any real episodes like that since I've been taking surströmming. So
The original Swedish fish, as you call it.
That's right. That's right.
That makes sense.
So, But yes, it's a lovely product.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try it.
Go ahead and get some.
Yeah. So as you know, we're approaching fall. I believe fall begins September 23rd, maybe? September 22nd, somewhere around there. I want to know, what are 3 things that you think our listeners should do during the fall season?
3 things to do. And I like to check all 3 of these things off at least once, if not multiple times. The first one that I have in the fall is go visit a farmer's market. It doesn't have to be a farmer's market. We have one here locally in Lakewood Ranch that has everything. They have empanadas. They have obviously different vegetables, local businesses and things like that. But also, I mean, growing up, we used to go out to Holland Farms and get boiled peanuts. And that was always just so much fun, just going out there with the family and riding home. You throw the peanut shells out the window, Just a great time to have as a kid. So I would say that's a quintessential fall activity, is going to a farmer's market. Who knows, maybe get a little beignet while you're there or something like that. Another thing is go to a live college football game. And you don't even have to love college football. You may think it's silly. But when you get there and everyone is just yelling for the same purpose, urging the team on, I don't care if you love football or hate it, but it's just such an encouraging thing to see everybody just pulling for the same goal. And obviously before the game, you can tailgate. I love to tailgate. Grill up some Conecuh sausages is personally my favorite thing to do while tailgating. So those are 2 things. The third one is ride somewhere with the windows down. You get that cool breeze. This past Saturday was really the first morning that I stepped outside on my walk and said, man, it is fall time. It was a little brisk, and when it's just, the days are just blistering like they've been the past several months, and you get that reprieve, you really got to take full advantage of it. So I've been riding everywhere with the windows down over the summer, but even more so now that the weather's cooled down a tad bit. It's just so enjoyable. So nice.
That sounds like a lot of fun. I love farmers markets because it's real community based, and it feels like you're in a neighborhood of people that are longing and itching for community with one another. And it's local vendors, support small businesses, so that's cool. But we're going to go away from small businesses into a corporation called Starbucks, because I think everyone should get at least one time, if you're able, a pumpkin spice latte. Now, I know some people have allergies to pumpkins and spices and lattes, but I would say modify it, or make one at home. That could be an option. Be your own small business, but get a pumpkin spice latte at least once this fall. Secondly, I think people should get in a healthy rhythm of exercise. 30 minutes a day of moving. Just move. That can be walking. That can be weight training. It can be both. It can be something like tossing a baseball with your kid, tossing a softball with your kid. Maybe holding hands with your loved one across the bridge over the water. You know what I'm saying? Something quite beautiful. That can be any bridge, over any water in the world. But I would say for our listeners in Dubai, because we do have 2% of our listeners are in Dubai, believe it or not. You could go over the beautiful river, over the seascape, and look at the landscape, holding the hand of your loved one. If you don't have a loved one, ask a random stranger if you can hold their hand and walk across the bridge with them. But get to moving. That's Some people say get to steppin'. I believe that is provided in a negative context.
Yep.
Like, get to steppin', I'm tired of you. But I'm not tired of you, so I want you to get to moving. And that's a personal challenge I have for myself. Move 30 minutes a day. Just do something. Lastly, this can be in the fall because it's going to bring on the Christmas cheer. And Christmas is in winter, but I think Christmas is the greatest holiday. So, in the spirit of Christmas cheer and gifts, I think you should buy one stranger's meal at a restaurant or a fast food place just once and see what happens. And why do we do that? Because we're generous. Generous lovers, generous givers. And so we want people in our community to know that someone loves them and cares for them, even if it's as small as buying someone's meal. Now, it could be big. You could be at a Prime and Pearl or a place like Ember's Steakhouse. That could be a big time purchase for you to buy a stranger's meal. But if you feel like that is the place to do it, I would challenge you to do it. You feel that urge? Do it. That's a good urge to have. But those are my 3. I'm excited for the fall. Fall is football. Thanksgiving. Lots of good food at Thanksgiving, but I'm certain we'll get to that one day. But yeah, that's it.
Wow. I think it's buying a meal for somebody is really, it's an incredible way to just do a random act of kindness, you know? Share somebody love who may not be getting any. And that may sound a little weird, but it's the truth. And whenever I do this, I typically do it at Taco Bell because statistically, they have the lowest average cost per order. So you mentioned Mark's Prime or Embers, whatever it is. I go to Taco Bell and do that because a lot of people are out there getting a $5 cravings box. That I can certainly pick up the check for somebody. You know what I mean? But then again, are we really giving if our wallets aren't being stretched and if we're not being made to feel uncomfortable? That's probably a better question.
That is the better question, and I would say the answer is no. If we don't feel a challenge, if we don't feel like we are giving beyond our means, then there's something missing there. Now, I'm not saying empty your bank account. You know, that's not financially responsible. But there is an element of you should feel uncomfortable with the amount that you're giving in a faith-based context, right? Because it requires faith to give more than what one would reasonably say is good. See, giving is a hard subject, but it's also a circumstantial subject. Think about the woman who, I believe she had 2 shekels, and she gave all of them to the church. What is 2 shekels going to do for a church or a person? Think of it like a nickel. What is 2 nickels? What is 10 cents going to do in the life of the receiver? I think the point is it's not the nickels. It's the act of generosity. And it's a picture of in the faith-based context, we should be giving literally everything we have to the Lord. That's more than money. That's our possessions. That's our thoughts. Thoughts are a big one. It's hard to give every single thought, hard to give every single decision to the Lord. But it's critical if we're actually transformed by the gospel. I don't even know how we got to this point, but it's a Sunday, which means fresh out of church, and we're moving that direction. We're pumped for the Lord. We're rejuvenated and refreshed, and we're ready to tackle the week ahead. And we're ready to tackle the giving season. And speaking of seasons and the holiday season, we know that holiday seasons are upon us, and they can be particularly difficult when it comes to weight loss or even maintaining your current weight. Now, introducing the Devil on Your Shoulder diet encouragement device that fits similar to a hearing aid and feeds directly into your ear. This has been a great investment for my life. The patented AI hunger recognition technology recognizes when you are really feeling tempted to eat something naughty and relays a message in your ear scolding you about your weight. This is a very healthy device. This new tool doesn't hold any punches and will make you feel like a terrible person as your mouth waters for that box of donuts. Use code Quite Frankly to get 10% off your order today and finally experience the feeling of victory in your weight loss battle. And what's funny about those rhythms of exercises is that rhythm of exercise is just the same rhythm of dieting that you need. That should become your lifestyle. You should feel a burden, a devil on your shoulder that's actually in your ear telling you this is not good for you. Eating an entire box of donuts is the temptation of gluttony. So with this devil on your shoulder, it's actually almost an oxymoron because the devil is working to bring you toward that temptation. But this device is special because that devil is telling you no. The devil is being a hypocrite, if you will. And it brings it to full circle because what is the devil after all? I would say he's hypocrite number one. Who was he before? He was an angel of the Lord. And now he's turned into this wretched man. Or being, spirit. And so the devil on your shoulder is going to impact you in more ways than one. And I'm just so thankful for the device and the learning and knowledge that it has given me to impact my weight journey.
So would you say it's an easy product to use? I mean, does it fit comfortably in the ear, everything like that?
Well, so it's funny is when it's actually in your ear, it fits comfortably if you're not going after that box of donuts. But as soon as you're going after that box of donuts, it almost buries itself in your ear and you kind of lose hearing. So it's kind of... So have you ever seen the hearing aids that are Bluetooth that are connected to your phone?
Mm-mm.
So they've come out with new hearing aid technology that's Bluetooth. So your phone rings and it's in your ear and you simply click a button on your hearing aid and it accepts the call. So you don't... It's hands-free. You're just talking. And I've caught people, and I thought they were talking to me, but it's like an AirPod, but built into your ear. And it's quite amazing. That's exactly what the devil on your shoulder acts as. It's a hearing aid. But when the devil talks, it expands in your ear, so you feel a little pressure there. That pressure, and you want to relieve that pressure. You'll do anything to relieve that pressure, so you'll slide that box of donuts away. So it's really quite the device.
Wow.
It fits comfortably if you're doing it right.
Okay, gotcha. And now that you bring it up, maybe the creators of this should call it like the angel on your shoulder or something like that. But I don't think that would really go with the saying, you know. Like,
Yeah,
I got that devil on my shoulder.
But could the argument be made that it could be called the former angel on your shoulder? You know what I'm saying?
The fallen angel on your shoulder.
The fallen angel on your shoulder. I got that fallen angel on my shoulder. Get to stepping.
That's too good. Well, I will say from a song of the week perspective, I've been listening to this song by the Hales called Fiona. And it's a single that they released prior to their new album they just put out. It actually came out 2 days ago on Friday. And you know, sometimes bands will put out singles, the best songs from the album first, create a little bit of hype, and then boom, here's the whole shebang, as we've called it previously. But yeah, it's good. I'll say with the weather changing a little bit, it's a good one to listen to with the windows down. It's a little bit, I don't know if indie rock is the best way to describe it, but all the band members hail from Miami. Get it? Hail. But they created the band at the University of Florida. And so they kind of cut their teeth playing at the High Dive, and now that they've released this album, they're headlining shows up and down the East Coast. So I think they'll be back in Gainesville September 27th, I think it was. But yeah, it's a good song. It's just kind of a ride, and just like a night on the town, just like kind of riding around. It's a catchy little tune.
Maybe we should set up a Quite Frankly booth at the Hales show on September 27th.
Now there's an idea.
We'll get into contact with them. They seem like bros and sisters. My song of the week, I've been listening. This is a former song I've listened to in the past, but it's recently brought back into my life. It's called "Bread of Life" by Children of Inheritance. And it is just one of the beautiful songs in all of the land. They have an album. They don't have much music out on Spotify, but this is part of a greater album, a bigger album. And this is, I'd say, the winner of the album, Bread of Life. And it's a Christian album, so they're talking about the Lord in it, but I would highly recommend. It's not a groovy dance to the song, but it's a nice singing song, if you know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
But that's the songs. I do have one final ad, if it's okay with you to share.
Please.
So this is the real deal. The shirt that I'm wearing, Mantra, they sent this over to me to promote on the podcast, and it's quite comfortable. It's polyester. They sell it as golf shirts. I've worn this golfing, and every time I've golfed in this shirt, I've shot in my top 10 range of scoring. So there's a good luck charm with it. It's a mock neck collar, but I will say this. Every single time I wear this shirt, golfing or in public, people walk up and say, "That's a cool shirt." And this specific design, it has circles and such all over it, and it's meant to represent a golf course. So it's like a topographical shirt, but they have many designs. But if you go to mantra.co, that's where you can find these shirts, and they are amazing. So I'd highly recommend, and we appreciate Mantra for sending this over. But yeah, you have any closing thoughts, any closing arguments or discussions that we should have?
Well, I'll say this about Mantra. From what you've told me about them, is that they love and respect our podcast, but they also love and respect grammatical accuracy. You told me the story that you went on their website and sent them a message because you found a typo on their website, and they were incredibly, grateful for that. And I know there's a lot of companies out there that, big or small companies, that would say, "Who's this guy criticizing our website?" But they received it with grace. They changed their website, and they said, "Thank you very much, Bo." So I think there's a lot to be said about people who care about grammar and using their words accurately. But also, just from a product standpoint, I've seen this shirt in person. It's great. If you listen to this podcast, you can pull off a mock neck. It's a small percentage of the population, but I will say if you're listening to this podcast, then you'll 1,000% be able to pull it off. So,
yeah, and I would say that's a point of how do we take constructive criticism. Because when I messaged them, I wanted to be sure that I was not criticizing them. Because, quite frankly, I loved their product. But I also cared for the future customers. Let's just throw out Karen and Karen as the stereotypical, oh my goodness, you're doing things wrong and I'm going to throw a fit for no reason. I wanted to protect them from that. Now, does that mean Karen should receive less love and less grace? Absolutely not. Because we know that people who hurt people, the stereotypical Karen, are usually hurt people. And so if our response to getting hurt is to hurt someone back, that just proves the point that hurt people. So how do we stop that? How do we stop that little back and forth? We respond with grace and mercy, and in doing so, we respond with love. And that's a challenge. I'd say that is the number one challenge we'd give you to do this fall, is to respond with love and proactively give love, because we're generous lovers and we're deep lovers.
That's accurate, yeah. And I would say no matter the situation, whether it's a typo on a website or somebody cutting you off in traffic, I'm very guilty of that. I love to call people names. I don't curse, but I love to call people names and make them feel like intellectually, they're less than me because they don't know how to drive. Here I go again.
Repent.
It's not my fault that they don't know how to drive, but I need to extend grace no matter what I think about their driving. And they may not have had people to teach them how to drive, like I was lucky to have, or like you were lucky to have. Maybe they had to figure it out on their own. So I should really think about all the circumstances, but that's something I'm guilty of. But yeah, as a reminder, it's all situations. We've got to extend grace. We've got to extend love. It just has to happen.
And if we don't, we're hypocrites. We are professed two of the most sinful men in the world. But without repenting of that sin, then we're just as bad as the devil.
That's right. Wretched, black-hearted sinners.
It's true. And we're at 50 minutes, a little over 50 minutes, which confirms that people will listen to this podcast. So with that, we'll see you in 7 days. Buy some merch. We're doing great on sales, and we'll see you next time.